Hi, everyone. I see you have some people here in this breakout room.
Hello, yes.
Hello.
Awesome. If you want, you can also turn on your camera. It's always nice to see who I'm speaking with, if you like, if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. Thank you. So I know that this is organized in a way that everybody can just drop in and whenever they find the time. So I did prepare a couple of slides, but obviously I would like to keep this more conversational. So I'm just gonna flash some of the slides that I have prepared just to give you an overview of what Vestr does, who I am, but always feel free to also share any questions you have directly here by unmuting yourself or share them in the chat if you feel more comfortable typing. That's both totally fine for me. So maybe I can start off with who I am, what brought me here, and also giving a brief overview of what Vestr does, who we are. So my name is Lisa Schroeder. I'm based here in Singapore since last year, currently working for a company called Vestr, which is a startup from Switzerland. Obviously, I'm not calling myself a co-founder because that's not what I am. I am actually an employee of the company. However, I have worked in the startup world for quite a bit. So that's why I thought I'd still be a good person to speak to if you have questions around what does it mean to work at a startup. Just to give you a brief overview of who I am, I have been working in various startup networks in the past, did my master's degree at Aalto University in Helsinki, started back in 2016. Since then, I've kind of joined various networks, started my own networks as well. So I have participated in Slush, one of the biggest startup conferences that is technology agnostic. Then co-founded a network that is called 180 Degrees Consulting. It's a student-run network, originally from Australia, but now quite a large global network. And we co-founded one of the branches in Helsinki. Then I did a semester abroad in Paris, also joined a couple of events and meetups in France. So that also gave me a bit of an insight of what's going on in the tech scene, and especially in the FinTech scene in Paris as well, because I already started doing an internship back in 2017 with an incubator called F10. It's a FinTech incubator and accelerator, with which I was also able to run several hackathons across Europe as well as in Singapore. So I joined that already during my studies in Zurich, part-time, then converted full-time while I was still wrapping up university. So it was a bit of a mix, and I think that's definitely representing of what startup life is like. You never really have a start and an end. It kind of always goes from one into the other. So what brought me to Singapore was actually my previous role at F10. We expanded through an hackathon format, but then also decided to set up an office over here. So I was the first person on the ground to bring our network and our programs that we have established back in Zurich already over to Singapore to help founders and startups grow and expand their businesses over here as well. Because what we did is we worked with corporate partners. So we work with banks and insurances predominantly to help connect them with startups that develop technologies or new business models that banks cannot as easily build themselves or integrate. So basically what we did was help kind of facilitate that interaction between startup and corporate. And that's actually what also brought me to Vestr eventually, which I was already able to encounter in Zurich during my time at F10 in Switzerland. I met the founders already then, saw them grow over time. And when basically I decided that I needed to, challenge myself a bit more, really dive deeper into the startup life myself, I reached out to my network. Turned out that they wanted to expand to Asia, which was a perfect fit because then I was already on the ground. They needed somebody who understood what they were working on, already connected in Singapore. So they onboarded me earlier this year. So I've been with Vestr since April of this year, building the company and the office out here We have onboarded one additional team member so far. So Ernest is also with me on the call. You can also directly get his take if you want from what it's like to work at a startup, because it's not always easy, not always straightforward, as I pointed out earlier. At the same time, while working at F10 and Vestr, I also joined other industry networks like SwissCham, for example. It's the Swiss Chamber of Commerce that helps Swiss companies kind of set foot in Singapore. And we also launched an award that addresses digital transformation here in Singapore and in the region, actually. And I also joined Singapore FinTech Association already last year as a simple member. This year I decided to take a more active role and applied for one of the subcommittees that they formed over time. So I'm now also part of the Women in FinTech subcommittee at SFA. So with that, I do think I have had exposure to some of industry parts that I think could be interesting for you. So please stop me at any point in time when you have more specific questions, because now moving on from my own introduction, I think it also makes sense to introduce Vestr a bit more, because I think it is definitely a great place to work. It's a fascinating industry that we are in, and I think it's definitely worth sharing what we do and where we're headed, because it's not an easy company, or it's not an easy business case that we're solving, because Vestr is in a very niche market called active investment management, and we claim to be the engine behind that network, because we believe that digitizing active investment management is necessary to move forward in the investment industry. Because at the moment, so actually 4 years back, our founders were working as traders themselves, derivative traders more specifically, and they identified certain gaps in the industry, because when they were dealing with active management and they were trading on the floor themselves, they realized that it's still a very manual process. Despite all the fintech trends that they've seen outside of their companies, respectively, it did not really reach their specific niche that they were in. So they decided to build Vestr and offer a more simplified and more transparent solution to the industry. And that's how they came up with Vestr, which is a B2B white labeled technology for the financial services industry. And they also realized that with all this limited scalability and transparency, there needs to be a better way to solve that with technology. So they ended up founding Vestr already 4 years back, and together with a corporate partner, with a bank specifically, which is called Julius Baer, they built the first prototype and the first minimal viable product, or MVP, to set the new standard for active investment management. And they've built the first product based in the cloud. So it's actually a SaaS-based platform that digitizes the whole value chain of actively managed investment products. So just to give you an overview of what our product looks like a little bit. So some of those screenshots are a bit outdated because we try to keep it a bit behind closed doors of what we do in specifics. So we built a platform that basically connects banks with asset managers to help them communicate with each other much easier and much faster than they would typically do when they just simply exchange Excel files and, jump on calls to negotiate the terms for the trade that they want to place on the exchange. So we have built an interface that makes it much easier for both the trader and the asset manager to communicate with one another and to identify what needs to be adjusted in the respective portfolio. And also respectively for the asset managers, we also enabled them to create reports that they can directly share with their investors, because they obviously need to keep that rapport and to keep them updated about what's going on with their money. So with that, we have luckily been very successful. So after the MVP with Julius Baer and going live with them back in 2018, we realized that there's actually a need from many more banks. So since then, we've actually scaled up our product, onboarded many more asset managers on the platform. I think by now we are at 600 users who are currently on the platform. We have onboarded 9 clients so far. I think the number of products that we currently can count on the platform are over 400, which is pretty impressive given that we're just a small technology provider. Beyond that, we did see that, well, by building a platform, there's actually much more that we can do with it. So now what we have focused on this year is actually kind of building out that platform to a whole ecosystem that we can offer to market participants who are interested in getting into active investment management or who want to digitize that niche for themselves. So we've also onboarded third-party providers like brokerages. For example, Interactive Brokers is connected to our platform, or crypto brokers. We have data providers like Bloomberg or Six Financial Information, who also can offer their respective services to our clients as well. And there's so much more we can build on that platform. That is why we kind of mapped out this whole ecosystem thought that we have in our head. And we are trying to get investors on board for our next fundraising round to help us on that journey, to keep building that ecosystem that we already have in mind and that we have started building. So it actually already works. So that's the good news. And obviously, this has many more implications of what does that actually mean for a company like ourselves to build out the whole team around it, to really build that platform on the one side on the technology front, but also to market that towards potential clients, to potential third-party providers that we would also like to onboard. I see there's a first question in the chat. Is the platform available in other languages? So at the moment, our platform is only available in English. That is the main company language that we have identified and that has worked with us thus far. That's an interesting point, actually, languages. I think now that we have kind of stepped outside of Europe and kind of explore the Asian market, which again has many facets, I think that's definitely something we probably have to explore as well. So far, it has never been a question from our clients whether this platform needs any other languages available. So thanks for the question. Again, this is something, we are in a very niche market, which means that it's still very hard to grasp what actually does the market look like for us. That is also why we started looking outside of Europe, because there is development going on both in Asia and in America, or in the Americas, so both North and South, which leads us to believe that we are definitely on the right track to reach even more clients, reach even more users. And that's why we also built the office out here in Singapore to explore the Asian markets going forward. Obviously, all that is not possible without a growing team as well. At the same time, we started out with 3 co-founders with various backgrounds. Most impressively is that all of the co-founders have worked at banks before, so they do understand very fundamentally what it needs in order to digitize that space. And they have really profound industry knowledge, which is why it is such a great place to work at, because even with my background, which is more in innovation and business, I'm still learning on the job what it actually means to invest actively. So that is obviously something that is not very accessible for retail investors like ourselves. So now I'm using Stashaway, but how active can I be? Not much. There are certain products that cannot access without a certain capital that I need to have accessible, or need to go through a broker in order to get products or get stakes into products that I would actually like to have. So we build out our team around different business functionalities. Given that we are now at 32 people in the team, it does require a certain structure. However, that does not mean that all responsibilities are clearly defined yet. So as for my role, I'm actually wearing multiple hats here at Vestr, because we are still kind of building out our different business functions. So being here in Singapore, obviously my tasks are around administration of the office, hiring is part of it, A large part is also marketing communications. So that's something that we're still building out as a startup, trying to, run on a small budget, but at the same time, getting the biggest reach we can have. I'm also part of our clients team. So I'm also getting visibility into what does it mean to actually onboard a client onto the platform, which means integration with the internal systems, which means explaining how our processes now work as compared to the manual processes they were used to. So also slight changes in the mindset is needed. So all that is part of my everyday role, so to speak. That is why startup life is still a very exciting journey, as well as a very challenging one. So it sometimes really can get a bit tricky as to where should I focus on most, what is actually business crucial. And that's why it's always good to have a strong team that I can always reach out to for questions. So that's definitely something we are very much aware of at a small company like Vestr, given that we are also quite scattered. So what I haven't mentioned yet is that, well, we are a Swiss company. We do have team members in Germany, Ukraine, and Singapore as well, which means our communication is fully remote. We are quite used to communicating on Slack, jumping on brief calls on Google Hangouts, for example. We also have our regular what's it called, all hands meetings every month or every 6 weeks, just to get everyone in the company who's new, or even the ones who have been with Vestr since the beginning, are constantly up to date of what's going on the client side, because now that we have somebody responsible for clients, obviously he's more invested in onboarding clients and communicating with them, what's going on with the product. Our business people like myself, I might not always have the visibility into what are the new features we're onboarding onto the platform, or the fundraising rounds. I also slightly touched on that topic. What does it mean when we are fundraising? Why do we do that? How much are we raising? Who are we reaching out to? What geographies do we want to cover? So all those questions can then be answered by Pascal, for example, if there are more follow-up questions on that front. So that's why I think it's also very crucial to have a certain kind of structure within a startup to keep everyone involved and everyone engaged and everyone informed about what's going on in the company. And likewise for us here in Singapore, obviously we are now exposed to conferences and meetups in this area. So obviously we would also like to share our learnings and insights with the team back in Europe. So it always runs in all directions. Yeah, and that's everything I wanted to convey for now. Obviously, I would much rather engage with you directly. So if you do have questions, let me know. Either unmute yourself or post them in the chat. I'm very happy to answer more questions around, what does it mean to work at a startup? What are the challenges? But also, if you have any more questions about Vestr, I'm also happy to answer those as well. So please go ahead and address any questions or general feedback or thoughts if you just want to have a discussion on certain things.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I have a go.
Yeah, please go ahead, Chai.
Yeah, just get an idea. Now, I mean, you present a good idea of what a startup should prepare and look for. But what about your Vestr? I'm still not quite sure what's Vestr's portfolio in to help. Can you help startups, or how is it?
Vestr is a technology company, so we are building software for the financial services industry.
So the financial services means, for example, a web platform, a mobile platform, or investment strategy. How is it? It's just on a UX side, on the front end?
So we build a platform that is web-based, so it's cloud-based. It's accessible through the web browser for our users, and that's both back-end and front-end. So we have built an engine that helps kind of facilitate that whole process of displaying the portfolio of that active investment manager to the issuer and vice versa. So actually, as soon as the issuer, which could be an investment bank or a private bank, any issuer who kind of gives out new structured products, can do so on that platform. So the investment manager can actually buy those products on behalf of their clients. So we are a B2B company.
Okay, so let's assume that I have a product. I have a fund. So I work with Vestr, and you list my fund onto your platform, and then the clients will go through them, and if they want to, then they can, from that your Vestr's platform alone, make the transaction. Is it correct?
So we are not actively making up any strategies or listing anything. So we are really just providing the infrastructure for banks. So basically, if the banks decide to offer your fund to their clients, then they have to list it on the platform. Vestr is basically just it's a white labeled solution. So we are basically just in the background, so to speak. So it's actually the bank who has to offer that to their client.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe my question wasn't too clear. For example, if a client has, or a bank has a fund up there, and the client wants to invest in it or purchase a certain package of it, so they have to transact. The bank and the client still transact behind the scene, or is it on your Vestr's platform as well?
That would be on the platform.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that can be traced on the platform. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more Vestr will be, for example, a transaction for platform for funds or investment instruments.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, it's nice to know that there is an avenue for this.
Yeah. Let me maybe go back to this overview. I think this will help a bit better. So at the moment, our clients are the sell-side companies. So we are working directly with the banks or SPV providers, which are special purpose vehicles. And the buy side, which are the clients of the banks, are also using our platform. We are not directly catering to them, but we provide access to the platform for them as well. So family offices and asset managers. In the future, we will also hopefully work with fund admins. At the moment, we are not doing that yet. And the third-party providers that I mentioned earlier, like brokers or data providers, are already connected to our platform. But again, that is also dependent on our clients. So the sell-side companies decide what data they want to make available to their clients. And they basically can let us know what are the data providers they need. So we can then, on a technical side, connect them to the data providers. But the banks are the ones actually paying for the services.
So if there is a transaction on a certain instrument, so Vestr's has a fee on it over every transaction, or is it?
Yeah, correct. So we are a transaction platform, so to speak. So we do basically charge for the transactions done on our platform. And the more products the bank has on our platform, the smaller is the amount that we charge per product. But obviously that is a regression model that we apply. So we do encourage them to put more and more products. It gets cheaper per product, but obviously we also generate our revenue through that.
Yeah, definitely. And another last question probably have, your platform that you have, for example, will be specific for specific localities, geographical localities. For example, Singapore will have one, and then Europe will have maybe a couple of them, depend on where they are regulated. Is it something like that?
Correct. So at the moment, it really depends on where the banks are issuing their products. So at the moment, our cloud is hosted in Switzerland. We are actually working together with Google Cloud for that, and using a data center in Switzerland. So currently all data is processed in Switzerland. But if our clients prefer to also offer their products in other geographies, that from a technical point of view, that is also possible.
Oh, okay, so it means that there could be cross-border transactions as well.
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Also, do leave me your contact details if you have any follow-up questions or you generally want to be connected. I'm always happy to have a more in-depth chat later on as well. Do we have any other questions in this group?
Maybe I can ask a question.
Yes, Ernest.
Yeah, so what actually led to Vestr actually branching out to Singapore? Are you guys trying to like enter the Southeast Asia market? Because I heard that you guys are based in like Switzerland, right?
Correct. Yeah, very good question. Thank you for that. So maybe I'll switch back to my market slide real briefly. So the idea of expanding for startups is always where is the demand? So in our case, it was one of our clients who also has traders sitting here in Singapore and wants to offer those services to their respective clients here in Singapore. So that made us believe that, well, if one client actually asked for this service already, there must be other clients as well. So that is why we open an office here to have presence and to have a direct contact point for potential other clients that we might service in the future. So yeah, for us, it was definitely demand driven. And also once we did a little bit of more market research, we also learned that, well, this active investment management industry is actually moving a lot faster over here in Asia. And by Asia now, I actually refer mostly to Singapore and Hong Kong in this scenario, because this is where most issuers sit and most issuers offer their services to their respective clients. So that is why it was basically just for us a choice to set our base for Asia right now in Singapore, but hopefully we will also be able to expand to other geographies if there's a demand. So right now, obviously one of my jobs here is also to explore what are the more interesting geographies next. So is it, well, Hong Kong, we already identified, but most recently, we've also learned that Australia is an interesting geography who also issues actively managed products. So that is definitely something we need to look into and assess whether we do need an office location there or we can service that from Singapore. So that is definitely the idea behind opening an office here, to explore what else is interesting for us to look at.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ernest. Yeah. Should I do?
Yeah, do you have a live platform that is running that
Yes.
I access to?
No, at the moment, we only provide the platform to our clients directly, and you basically need to be a client of theirs in order to get access.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a public platform.
Got it.
So are you guys involved in any other SFF activities throughout this week?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We are actually. So on Friday, we are going to present on Deal Fridays, just to get a bit more attention from investors. As I mentioned, we are looking into building a broader ecosystem. So we are looking to raise some funds for that round. We're raising our Series A+. And on Friday afternoon, I'm actually on another panel about women in tech. So do give it a try as well. I think that's definitely a good space to always kind of educate yourself of what our peers might be struggling with and how we can help. So that is basically the idea of also raising a bit of awareness of working in the tech scene. So yeah, please join us as well if you're interested. Any other questions or thoughts? I'm happy to to just discuss something if there's any, ideas that you just came up with now, hearing us speaking about various topics in this round.
Sorry, got one more question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, what's the prerequisite for to be on board your platform?
So, well, it makes sense to be active in active investment management. So you mentioned that you have a fund. So that is something we are currently looking into, how to make it available for fund managers as well. Because our original idea is we have actually set up this platform for actively managed certificates, which are basically complementing funds in the sense that they act like funds, but they're much more accessible for smaller capital investments than when you want to set up a fund. So that is also why we're currently working with SPV providers, because they have identified that there is a need for kind of a company structure that allows you to issue AMCs if you don't have as much money to build a fund yourself. So that is a prerequisite. If you are looking to get more into active investment management, then I'm happy to have a chat. That is definitely something, you would need to look into.
All right, thanks. Thanks